Soul is history that moves you, saying, remember this day. Soul is the spirit inside each of us that never gives up. Soul is a voice that says, listen to me. Discover our history, our spirit, our soul in Jackson, Mississippi, the city with soul.
Welcome back. This season is already off to a great start. Enjoy the conversation. Let's go get some napkins dirty. Let's get to it.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, comedian Rita Brent.
Shokwe Antar Lumumba.
Hey, it's Tamara Sharif.
Nick Wallace.
Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Dan's partner, Jeff Good.
Until next time, it's your host, Jay Taylor. Jeff Good and Dan Blumenthal are the co-owners of 3 Jackson-based restaurants, Bravo's Italian, Broad Street Bakery and Cafe, and Sal Mookies New York Style Pizza, which is where we're located today. The two have been in business for almost 3 decades, and they've been friends equally as long. I don't know about you, but I'm starving. So without further ado, let's go get some napkins dirty. I'm here at Sal Mookies with the 2 co-owners, Jeff Good and Dan Blumenthal, and I'm excited to talk to them about their establishments and their restaurants. So to jump right into it, Dan, you've kind of been coined as the gentleman who kind of masterminds all of this. And then Jeff, you were once called handsome and gregarious. Do you think that's
Once handsome and gregarious. What's the matter with currently handsome and gregarious, Jeremy?
Do you feel that's accurate?
I'll take any compliment I can get.
Gotcha.
You're kind to say that, but he is kind of the centerpiece of what we do. You know, Dan comes up with our concepts, makes it happen.
Great. So I guess just to jump right into it, we are here at Sal Mookies, a New York style pizza restaurant. How did this whole thing come about?
All right.
Well, I think it was late one night and I had watched a movie called Do the Right Thing, which is a Spike Lee movie that was done in 1989. And it took place in a pizzeria in Brooklyn. And the 2 main characters were Sal and Mookie. Sal was the pizzeria owner and Mookie was the delivery boy. So if you've seen that, it sort of evokes the feeling that I wanted to evoke with my pizza place. Small New York pizzeria, family run, with a really good feeling about it. So that evoked the feelings that I wanted to evoke in Sal and Mookies, and just decided to name it Sal and Mookies.
And Jeremy, we had been talking about opening a pizzeria at that point. We had Bravo up and running in Highland Village, Broad Street over at Banner Hall. And I had twin girls. They were about 8 years old at that point, 7 or 8 years old. And you know, dads take daughters out for ice cream. And if you think back in 2006, when we were looking at this idea, there were very few ice cream choices in Jackson. You had a couple of the soft serve ice cream places. You had the Marble Slab on County Line Road, and you had the Baskin Robbins in front of Kroger on I-55. And those people were mean. And so you want to go have a good time having ice cream. So I told Dan, I really would love to do an ice cream place. And he looked at me and he goes, I've got no interest in that. I'd love to do a pizzeria. So we started talking about putting those two ideas together. And if you touch back to the movie that Dan used as inspiration for the name, that pizzeria was a centerpiece of that community. And the young folks and the neighbors would come in and eat, or they'd order to go. And then in the afternoons, the kids would come to a roll-up window and they would get an ice. And they'd be served a cold ice, a treat. Just like here with the Scoop Shop, that you can go to a window, have it rolled up, and be provided a treat. So I think we've really honored that movie well, and we've honored the concept of creating an important restaurant that means something. We're 15 years old, that means something to the community, is celebrating good service and good food, and is approachable for all. And especially in our new location here in the district, it's a little bit like going to Disneyland.
That's nice.
We really wanted to create something that if you wanted to sit at the bar and have drinks, you felt like you were transported. If you were a child and you walk up to that Scoop Shop, it is like, whoa, what else can I have? And then when you're sitting at the table and having delightful food like this, you're having a quality meal that has been made by people who know how to make food because they were under Dan's tutelage.
Gotcha. So let's go all the way back, right? And we're going to touch on all of the restaurants throughout the course of this interview. But I want to talk on the roots, how all of this started, right? So many people may not know you're not originally a native of Mississippi.
Right.
You moved here around your senior years, to my understanding, and that's where you two met. When I have to tell this story because I thought it was a great story. You were in class chewing on a pen.
First week of school.
Blue ink all in your mouth.
Exploded in my mouth.
The teacher said, what are you choking for? You open your mouth up, blue tongue.
Class erupts. I mean, it's just like a movie. Your first week of school, nobody knows you. You're a freak from Salt Lake City, Utah, and you have a pen explode in your mouth. And so I go to the bathroom. I'm sure everybody's laughing about it. But, Dan, people think that he's kind of gruff and he's, they could think that he's kind of, aloof. He reached out to me that day and said, in a nutshell, you're just a mess. You probably need somebody to, help you figure things out. And so he befriended me, and that really meant an awful lot. And we became fast friends, and along with another guy, Gary Silverman, the three of us, we hung out our senior year, and we kept in relationship after graduating Murrah. Dan went out west and I stayed here in Jackson.
So I want to talk about that, right? So Dan, when you went out west, what exactly, were you in, what university, or were you in culinary school or something like that? What was that?
Yeah, I left after high school to go to college at University of California at Santa Cruz. And then after my 4 years there, I matriculated up to San Francisco and worked in a law firm for a couple of years. I thought I might go to law school. And that solidly turned me off to law school after about 2.5 years there. And it was interesting, the environment I was in. San Francisco was a very large hospitality market. And there were a lot of restaurants and hotels and things like that in the hospitality business. And I really, I had roots in the hospitality business because my grandparents had a bakery, up to 3 bakeries at one point in Trenton, New Jersey. And so food was kind of my roots. And I was in an environment that was very conducive to food. So I thought to myself, I've been to college, why don't I go to culinary school and learn this trade, learn the hospitality business from the kitchen perspective. And so there was a culinary school already in San Francisco, so I didn't have to leave to go to school. And so I did go to culinary school in San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay. So now, Dan's in San Francisco. Jeff, at that time, you're here still.
Yeah,
I
graduated Millsaps, got married to my wife, Debbie McGregor. She was a high school Latin teacher at JPS. We bought a small house in Broadmoor, and I got a job working for a computer company, and I was, knocking on doors and asking people if they wanted to buy a computer. And
I thought it was interesting that you were on record saying when you first went to college, you were still finding yourself. You were a little lost. What was that all about?
Well, you move your senior year. See how that works.
Okay.
And especially, I moved from Salt Lake City, Utah, which is a very different in this day and age, Salt Lake is a very different city than it was back in 1970s. In the 1970s, it was smaller. This is before tech and before the Olympics and all the changes. It was a very, very Mormon town. It was an LDS town. We were Methodist, so I was not part of the predominant religion, which was 90% of the population. It was difficult growing up as a kind of an outsider. It taught me a lot about soft prejudice, about being the other, which I think has informed me as an adult living in Mississippi. So anyway, the other part about living in Salt Lake is I went to public schools, and I went to school from 1st grade through 11th grade with 3 people of color. Because Salt Lake at that point in time was all, you know, pretty much Midwest with ties to the kind of that Northern European thread. So very blonde, Christensen, Jorgensen, Jones, names like that. And so I moved to Jackson, Mississippi, enrolled at Murrah High, 65% African American population at that point. It was very new to me. So it was hard to acclimate to the South. It was hard to acclimate to all of those elements. And I also came from an environment that was kind of cloistered to a place where I was given my first beer bong, and I learned to party, and that didn't play well, and that affected me when I went to college my freshman year, where I failed out. So I went to Millsaps, and I was a real fish out of water, and I did not do well, and the dean of students put me on academic probation, and I had to move home to the dean of students' house because the dean of students was my dad.
Yeah, Millsaps at the time. Right?
Yeah. So that was quite a moment.
Because ultimately, that's how you get from Salt Lake to Jackson, right?
He took a job at Millsaps.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I've been here for now 42 years. This is home. I've lived by far the majority of my life here. What I'll tell you is when I took that semester off, I've been working as a minimum wage cashier at LaFleur's restaurant, you know, and I did that for 2 years. And one of the things I think that's informed us about what we do is we ask people to work, and we need to pay them living wages so they're able to live. I know what it felt like to have to park my car on a hill because I didn't have the money to get a new alternator, and I would have to pop the clutch and kickstart the car to go. I've been there. I've had no money at all. And so when I took that semester off, I got a job waiting tables. And that changed from going from a minimum wage cashier job to a job that was based on my performance and my ability to engage with people and give great service and make more money per hour, allowed me to go back to school, and I hit it, and I was a straight A student to try to catch up with him because he was always a good student.
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, and I think something that's real interesting, that's a great segue. You talk about the first job you had, well, not your first job,
Yep.
where you were knocking on doors, kind of doing a lot
Right.
of sales.
Right.
That fell through for you. You said, hey, this doesn't work for me. And you pick up the phone, call out West
Yep.
to your buddy here,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You guys start talking.
Yep.
I almost fell out of my chair when I read this last night. So you go, I guess, to start securing funding. You take a banker out to dinner, and you say, all right, I need $500,000. I want to start a business.
Right.
And he says, you're not getting any money because you don't have any money.
So I did junior achievement, and we also met in DECA, which was the marketing and business club in high school. We are business people. We believe in the free market, in the capitalist system. It is, you know, I've gone from a guy who had to pop his clutch to start his car to being a successful business person. The free enterprise system allows anyone to be able to come up with an idea, put it in the marketplace, and earn a living. However, you've got to be able to get that first step on the run. And so for someone who doesn't have assets, when they want to do something that needs assets, you can't get assets because you don't have them. It's a catch-22. So that's why so many home businesses are home businesses, and they scale, you know, on a little bit of time. But a restaurant, to do a restaurant, you've got to build the entire restaurant. You got to put all of this stuff in the restaurant. You got to hire all of these people to work in the restaurant. You got to train them and be ready to open for the first day to get your first dollar.
And that takes a lot of capital.
And that takes a lot of capital. So it's really hard to fund a restaurant. So most people, when they're told no by a bank, that's the end of the story, right? And where else are you going to go?
But you guys, you decide, at the time, I think you and your wife, Debbie, were in a 2-bedroom.
Yep.
Right?
Boy,
And you guys start.
did you have a camera on us or something?
Well, maybe. Maybe. But you guys decide, hey, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to cook, right? And we're going to get a bunch of people over to try and raise capital so we could do this ourselves. Dad, why? Why was it that important?
Why was it that important to entertain people, or why was it that important to do it that way?
Oh, yeah. Two really good questions.
Yeah, great questions.
Well, they say the way to people's hearts is through their stomachs. So that was a way to start to bring them into the fold. We needed them to buy into our concept and who we were, especially who we were. Because at that point we were still young. We didn't have a long track record behind us. So we had to impress people, and the way we knew how to do that was to cook for them, and to show them what we were capable of doing.
And to show them the differentiated product that he had envisioned. Because when I started talking to people about we're going to open a restaurant, they said, well, isn't Olive Garden going to come to town? How are you going to be able to compete with somebody like that? And I said, we've got a very differentiated idea of what we're going to do, but you have to show people.
Because it started with Bravo's, correct?
Yes.
Bravo's Italian.
Yep.
That was the groundwork before the other two came into fruition.
Yep. And so he had because of his when he graduated culinary school, he worked at a number of different restaurants and got different experience. And one in particular, which was called Spuntino, was an Italian cafe concept, and it had this kind of Mediterranean, Umbrian, Tuscan menu, which is very common now, but was very uncommon in the heartland. It may have been common in East Coast, West Coast, but in the Middle Coast back in 1993, when we're talking about this, it was kind of unique. So, maybe Dan can speak to that a little bit about what the vision was.
Well, like I said, San Francisco was a very up-and-coming culinary town at that point in the early 90s. And they were really, I think, finding their roots in doing Italian food crossed with some California ideas. So we called it Cal Italian. Yeah. And it wasn't purely Italian, but it wasn't not purely Italian. And I think what people around here were really missing was this authentic Italian that was beyond spaghetti and meatballs, beyond lasagna, beyond some of these things that people had in their heads as being Italian. There's a lot more to it.
Dan introduced focaccia bread to this market. Dan introduced bruschetta, which is the garlic toast with the Roman tomatoes, basil, garlic, onion, olive oil. Dan introducce polenta to this market. The wood-fired oven. Grant Noe had Brick Oven Cafe on County Line Road a year before we did Bravo. But the idea of doing that wood-fired oven in a upscale restaurant and putting that kitchen out into the dining room, breaking that fourth wall, making it so customers saw the people making their food and made a connection to it. That was all, and it was also a show. It was like, bravo. It was really an extraordinary idea, and having one big open room and making it so you couldn't smoke in the dining room. These were things that were way ahead of their time. And it's all because of Dan's experience in San Francisco. So he had the idea, we came up with the menu, we came up with the business plan, and I just ran my mouth incessantly for a year. Which is what I do.
Great segue, because you've been called, right, entrepreneur, a restaurateur, but you would prefer to be referred to as a marketer. Is that still the case?
Sure, I'll market anything that I believe in, and that's one of the reasons I try to work so hard for the city, is that I believe in it. I believe that there's excellence that's just around the corner for Jackson, and so I will always market him, our restaurants, our people. I believe in that, it gets to be a little bit of an ego stroke for me, which I probably need to keep in check. But you're kind to say that. And I want to market this food to you here real quick before it gets cold. So I saw you nibbling on the calamari. So Dan, do you want to tell them what we're having here?
Okay, I've got fried calamari here with 2 sauces. Calamari is squid. Got a marinara sauce and a lemon garlic aioli, which is sort of like a mayonnaise, a little bit thinner than a mayonnaise. And we've got some of our hot wings here, some of our famous hot wings.
And you got the dipping sauce there. Looks to me, I hope that Kiona gave us gorgonzola. It's sometimes hard to tell. Here we go. Gorgonzola. No, Green Goddess. Kiona likes, our waitress likes Green Goddess. So you can get this with any type of dipping sauce you want. The gorgonzola is a homemade blue cheese. The Green Goddess is Dan's version of a buttermilk dressing like a ranch, but he uses tarragon vinegar in it, which makes it delicious. We do hot wings a number of different ways. The ginger molasses, the Thai chili, the barbecue, and the Chipotle barbecue, and the classic wings, which I'm a fan of. And then this is a Waldorf salad, which is Dan's take on a Waldorf salad. So a Waldorf salad is apples and grapes and nuts in a salad. We call it the Waldorf as a wink and a nod to being in Mississippi. It's the Waldorf. And I have Green Goddess dressing for that as well.
I get it. That's clever. That's
yeah.
Yeah, I get
so
it.
It's a, these are some real, from a starter standpoint, real great representations of what a meal at Sal Mookies can be like. It's not just a pizza place. You can have a really extraordinary, well-done appetizer or salad, followed with a great pizza or a pasta that is made to order by hand. When you order Alfredo, nothing comes out of a scoop. Heavy cream goes into a pan, a burner gets turned up all the way, seasoning, and that cream reduces, and then the pasta is built, and any kind of garnish is put in there, and then it's served up. Because Dan took his chef knowledge to bring to a pizza concept, so we had an elevated experience while still being familiar. Is that a good way to put it?
Great way to put it. Thank you for doing that.
I'm going to eat.
I guess my next question for you guys, while you're doing that, you've been in business for a very long time. You've been very successful at this. But your company has almost been coined as like some of Jackson's biggest cheerleaders, right? Why was it important when you opened a new location to stay in Jackson? You could have gone anywhere, I would imagine. But why stay here local? Why stay, in the district, or come to the district?
Well, we really were trying to stay local. The whole time is what we were trying to do. We had thought we might need to take Sal and Mookies elsewhere because there just wasn't the right spot for us at that time. But this came available, and we saw the promise in this location. And we were able to work out a deal that was good for the landlord and for us, because at that time we were right in the middle of COVID. And the business wasn't exactly there. This is a big restaurant, and it demands that we do a certain level of business to pay the rent. Yeah. So we took a leap to stay in Jackson and to be in this, what we think is a primo spot. And so far, it's been working out for us.
Have you all found any difficulties, right, with a lot of people opting to move to the suburbs, right? Has that hurt the business at all, or
Absolutely.
What's been your take on it?
Absolutely. So we've lived here. Dan was here far earlier than I was here, but if we just take it from the 1980s, Jackson topped out at 202,000 people in the city proper in early 80s. We're down to 175,000, 176,000 right now in the city proper. The metro area has grown significantly, but the city proper is smaller. Every time folks move to the suburbs, when you move to a new neighborhood, especially if the neighborhood has church, school, and work, your pattern changes. So to bring somebody in who lives in Gluckstadt, to bring them to eat with us here is a challenge. Kiona, tell us, it would take a second here, Sure. Tell us what you brought us, if you would.
Okay, so we got 2 regulars. We got a regular Seaport and a regular meat packer.
So what are those?
Hard questions. Y'all done with y'all appetizers?
She's
or
so
not yet?
no,
Yeah,
not at all.
them
She's
too.
so bashful. She is. You want to tell them about the pizzas real quick?
Yeah, the Seaport is basically our seafood pizza. It's got a bechamel base with fontina and mozzarella cheeses, shrimp, crawfish, and when we can get it, crab meat.
I'm gonna have you put me a slice on here while you're breaking
And
it
the
down.
thing about this is Dan's vision on this. He that bechamel, he seasons it with Old Bay seasoning, which is crab boil. So if you smell that, it's going to smell like you're at a crawfish boil, like a shrimp boil. You're going to have that coastal
Sure
feeling, and then it is just fatty and delicious. It is just really, really good.
I find out you don't judge me, Dan. I know you're a big food guy, but I actually like cold pizza, right? So I'm
I do too, yeah. Well, maybe not cold, but take the heat off of it. Just more of a room temperature.
I don't know what they're talking about. I like my pizza hot.
You like
I like the
pizza
string to come out. Going to finish this Jackson narrative.
Yeah.
So as people move to the suburbs, we found our ability, particularly for Sal Mookies, located in Fondren, where we purposely put it there as a method to jumpstart that Fondren project 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. We found it harder and harder to convince the families that were in the suburbs to come eat with us because there was so much distance. And the kids are busy. They're doing school, they're doing after-school sports, they're doing church activities, and it's happening in the suburbs. So we did two things to address that. Number one is we opened a Sal Mookies in Madison. But we did that, and this is part of our culture of what we try to accomplish here with our people. Two of our best managers, these are two folks that came to us as waiters, worked into management, learned our business, said they wanted to open their own restaurant, reminded us a lot of ourselves, and then we helped them and guided them through that process of raising money through investors and putting a business plan together. And they took the old Georgia Blue location in Colony Crossing at 463 and Bozeman Road, renovated it, and opened Sal Mookies in Madison. It is their restaurant, not ours. It's our concept. Right now, in a parallel universe, somebody is sitting having chicken wings that are just like this there, but that's their business that we support. What a great way for us to grow our concept while still having the time to be here talking with you. So step one was we opened that and we didn't see any change in our business in Jackson because we already knew we had lost the suburb. It was a new way for people to engage with us. Now when it came time to moving our lease was up, it was time to leave that building. We'd kind of worn it down. We had huge infrastructure problems there. During the freeze last year, we were closed for 21 days.
And that's a great segue because you guys had this perfect storm almost of things just happened right all at the same time, right? From the water infrastructure to then maybe COVID. Then, right? Then you start talking about what we just touched on, people leaving the city.
Yep.
How have you managed to stay afloat through all of those things?
I think we have dug a little bit deeper in who we bring into our restaurants. We've really established ourselves as the place for local people to come. I think we've tapped into that African American community, and so you see a lot of different colored faces in our restaurants.
Because we're in a great black city. And this is that is really, really important that we celebrate and acknowledge that. And we early on in our business, when it had been easy to lean on white middle class to be your bread and butter, we clearly saw that we live in a city where we wanted to serve all the folks we went to high school with, and we wanted to make sure that they felt absolutely welcome. Because at a time 20 years ago, there was a moment when you ate at a Northeast Jackson restaurant that you might skip a beat because there'd be very few people that looked like you in there. And that's something that goes back to when I was in Salt Lake City and I wasn't Mormon, and I'd show up in a room and it's like, well, I'm not like the rest of these folks. So it's just, I really appreciate Dan saying that because I think that's a very authentic answer. My other answer, being the marketer, is the reason that we've done well is because of this food. It's exceptional.
Well, and I think as you say, wanting to wanted to almost not spotlight, but just really understand the market and the demographic here. That's a good thing. And even when we go back to just how you guys raise the funding, that's things that I feel like our community can relate to, right? Because you generally hear, oh, you know, he's a white guy. He's not going to have any issues getting capital. He's not going to have any problems or anything like that. And for you all to say, oh, yeah, you know, we had issues. We weren't able to get the funding.
Here's my favorite moment. So I've been asked to tell this story in a lot of business schools, including Jackson State and Tougaloo. So I'll be in Jackson State. I'll be in a classroom. It'll be a marketing class or an entrepreneurship class. I'll tell the story about how he started up. I'll tell the story about going to lunch with the banker and him, you know, and I'm saying, we got this great idea. It's gonna be Bravo. It's gonna be a fantastic restaurant, cutting edge. We need $500,000. How do you borrow $500,000? And what I'll say is, the banker looks at me and goes, and this is true, he did say this. He said, Jeff, we can loan you $500,000 tomorrow. And I'll pause and I'll look out at the audience and I see everybody going like this. And then as soon as I've skipped that beat, then I'll deliver the punchline. If you have $500,000 in the bank with us. And everybody kind of gets confused, and I'll use that as a teaching moment, and I'll say, this is an example of this quandary about genius being able to capitalize on an idea and bring it forward, that if you don't have money, you can't bring your business idea forward. To get money, you oftentimes have to have money. And so even me, the banker was my college business class partner. We did our projects together. I knew him well.
And still no.
Still no. Hard no. Hell no, we're not going to loan you the money. Hell no. But the gift we had is both of us had the gift of a good education. We had the gift of both having a college education he was an economics major. I was a marketing and statistics major. We both wrote well. We both could communicate well. So we were able to put together a 250-page business plan that explained our restaurant, and then be able to relentlessly, 750 people. Do you want to talk about a restaurant? Do you want to talk about a restaurant? Out of that 750 people, 250 people walked through that front door of mine on a Tuesday or Thursday night to be fed. And out of that 250 people, 44 people said, I'll give you $10,000. And that took a year and a half. So grit kept on going, wouldn't stop. But we also had the gift of the tools of the education to be able to articulate that plan. That's why it's really important that if we want to build a great Jackson, that we need to make sure that my daughter teaches elementary school at JPS. We need to make sure that all these young folks are given the knowledge and the tools, and also to see the representation that they can be as much as they want to be. And it's really hard when so many middle-class folks, and now middle-class folks of color, are moving to the suburbs.
Sure. And that's a great point for us to gather over some of this food.
Soul is fire. From a slow simmer to a beautiful braise. Soul is sweet perfection and salty, spicy, saucy goodness. Soul is buttery smooth, melt in your mouth, and oh my. Discover our soul in Jackson, Mississippi, the city with soul.
So this is from me and the entire team here at Dirty Napkins.
Thank you. It's my favorite color too.
We knew that.
Ooh, awesome. Thank you. Yes, I love my t-shirt.
Thank you, and congratulations on everything y'all are doing. I only hear great things about this show, so I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I will definitely rock it.
Yeah, the pizza I've had so far is amazing. I had to get 2 new slices.
There you go.
But before we went off briefly, we were talking a little bit about just almost this perfect storm that hit you guys, right? We talked a little about COVID, and if you want to touch a little more on that, you can. But I'm also interested to know, how are you guys dealing with like the inflationary pressures that are happening right now, and then also just the supply, like the employee shortage, the staffing shortages that a lot of economists are saying is hitting the restaurant industry particularly hard.
Yep. You want to talk about inflation, and I'll take the employee bit?
Yeah, the inflation, it's nothing new to us. It's actually been in place now for about 6-8 months. But I think everyone is just waking up to it. We've been dealing with it for better part of half a year to 3/4 of a year. And it involves pretty much everything. There are different reasons that we have inflationary pressures on prices for us, on the cost of our goods. Chicken has issues with avian bird flu. Got, of course, the supply line issues of just getting goods, getting them off the container ships and getting them into the ports, and then getting it distributed from there. But it's a real issue right now with the cost of this food. Everything has gone up significantly. And so we've had to raise our prices a couple of times, and may have to one more time to balance everything out. And so far we haven't seen any pushback over pricing.
That was my natural question.
The wings have been a huge issue because wings basically doubled in price. And it's still a wing to people. It's not the primo part of the chicken.
And people, I know customers remember, right? They're like, wait a minute, this is just $10. I don't know the price of it, right? This is just $10, and now it's 13, and $3 is a lot of money.
Yes. So it's endemic right now.
Gotcha.
And then again, we have the issue of employees, which I'll let Jeff talk to.
So our problem with employees is the same problem that the manufacturers and the distributors are having with employees. So besides getting things off the containers, one of the issues we saw early on was the ability to get specialty packaging. So the to-go boxes, any kind of printed cup or any kind of logoed item, the plants all shut down. And then when they restarted, they had a hard time getting employees in to be able to run lines. So what they did is they said, we're not doing any more custom work. We're going to have a limited amount of products, and we're going to try to get that back up and running. And so we started having all sorts of issues with all sorts of issues at Broad Street. Let me start that again. We started having all sorts of problems at Broad Street with our coffee cups. Every week we'd have a different coffee cup. We're ordering every week, so many cases. And one week it'd be this, and next week it'd be this, and one week it'd be, it was crazy. And finally, we honed in on an acceptable coffee cup that was the right size, that was thermal, so it didn't burn your hand, because it's a to-go cup, and that was reasonable in price for us because we're trying to manage our costs. So then all of a sudden the food, like Dan said, the cups started happening 1.5 years ago. The food hit us like a freight train 8 months ago and has gone forward. And every week there's a different thing. We just got notice that our chemical cost for a line of chemicals we get for cleaning and dishwashing, it's going up 10%. Our air conditioning guys, they've started adding a $40 charge to come out to service us for air conditioning. They didn't used to, but gas is $6 a gallon. So we get it. And the only way that we can pay our bills is when you come out to eat and you pay us. And the only thing we have to sell is this amazing food on the table. So we have to price this at a point that covers the cost.
And I like you saying that, because what I respect a lot about you two and the business you run is that you want your employees to respect your leadership and feel, that they can come to you, feel that they have a place of employment where they can trust that things are going to happen. So I can completely understand the pressure that you guys are dealing with, from the food prices to all of these just different.
Well, so that makes it hard to pay everybody what we want to pay them. So you asked, the other question was inflation and staff. 2 years ago, in March, we wrote a letter to 182 human beings that we were intimate with, that worked with us on a daily basis to serve our customers, and we wrote them a letter to tell them that they were terminated. And we had done an excellent job of communicating ahead of time, being that, because nobody understood COVID, nobody understood what was happening. Hell, I thought I was going to turn into powder in my shoe, like spontaneous combust, if I caught it. We tried to educate everyone, say something's happening. We saw it, our catering orders all ceased. Then there was the law that said you can't have more than 100 people in a room, can't have more than 50 people in a room, can't have more than 20 people in a room, shut it down. Then you had to shut down. So we communicated our way through that. We set up our employees so they could find their path to unemployment insurance. We helped that happen. We started working on our PPP loan. We started working on the things that we would need to be able to generate some form of revenue, because there's nothing coming in to be able to bring people back. And so then as we're trying to bring those folks back a year and a half ago, when the federal stimulus was there for unemployment and for child care, it was hard to get some folks to come back because they were making enough money to keep their family going while they were taking care of their family. At-home learning. No daycares open. Can't leave the house. You have somebody of grandma who is highly susceptible to dying. We're not going to get her infected. So the idea that employees didn't want to come back to work because they were flush in money, I think it could have been a true narrative for a while. It's not a true narrative now. Anyone who's not coming back to work right now, if they're not coming back to work, it's because they have some reason, and it might be fear, it might be dysfunction, it might be family issues. I'm not sure what it may be. But what we see is there's just less folks out there that want to work in our industry. I think there was a lot of older folks that retired from all work, be it factory, office, bank, whatever. That opened up the opportunity for the next generation to move into those jobs. That in turn opened up a lot of entry-level positions that people that may have been in the restaurant business said, I've always wanted to work a desk job, I'm going that direction. And so then you turn around, you're looking for people to come and work in the restaurant business, and they're very few. And then we're in Jackson, and we have a population that is oftentimes those that work in the restaurant business, they struggle economically with location, transportation, balancing school and family commitments. Broad Street, we traditionally have been an outstanding employer for single mothers because we have a process there and a program and flexibility that makes it easy for a single mom to make a great living there, have a good time, and be able to take care of the problems that she may have, or he may have, because I got some single dads too. So to answer the question, Jeremy, it's a complex story, and I think all we can do is when we say this is what we do, and we do it with excellence, and we want it to be great, and if you come to work with us, you're going to learn the restaurant business. Then, years from now, one of those folks might be like Louis LaRose, who worked with us as a chef at Bravo for 16 years. He started as a dishwasher when he was a kid, and then became the chef and ran the restaurant, and now has Lou's Full Serve.
Oh, okay.
Derek and Jennifer from 463, Walker's, Kate. Derek worked with us a short period of time when we first opened Bravo. Jennifer worked with us a longer period of time in management and catering. That's not to say that their success is based on us, but they came through our doors, and they saw that. Patrick and Mary Kelly that had Julep and Mint. They were people that were in lead. Patrick was a leader at Bravo. Danny Mitchell that owns For Heaven's Cakes and Catering. She was our pastry chef for years at Broad Street. So the idea that we have a place where we share everything with full transparency, so you can move forward with your life later on, and we celebrate.
So with all of those pressures you just articulately laid out, how did you guys deal with all of that, right? And I'm not even talking about in the business sense. I want to get a little personal, right? How do you deal with the pressures of we had to lay off 180 people, right?
Just like everyone had to deal with different pressures at that time when COVID set in, everybody had to deal with certain stressors and pressures. It was difficult, but we took the right steps. Even looking back, I think we took the right steps to ensure that we'd be able to reopen down the road. We got small, we got lean, we hired back those people that we knew we'd need, and then as we developed our business plan going forward, we were able to bring people back, and we slowly built the business back.
So, I mean, it's super honest with you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm an alcoholic. I stopped drinking 25 years ago. I never worked the recovery program known as Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps and the like. I stopped drinking. I got some help at the very beginning, but that's another chapter. It's done. Let's go. Work time. So maybe there's a reason I failed out of my freshman year, right? All right. So
We share that.
what COVID? Right on. One day at a time, right? What COVID did for me is it made me all of a sudden realize that I had no power. I had no control over anything. That I was also thinking that I had a lot of control of my behavior. I'd become an absolute alcoholic in my behavior, the way that I impressed my will upon my partner, the way I impressed my will upon my wife, the way that I looked at the world and I thought that I was all this. So it ended up for me, the way I got through it, is I started going to meetings and I got a sponsor and I started working the steps. I started going to counseling, and every week I'm on a therapist couch and I'm talking about me. I'm not complaining about the world and how unfair it is or how, my wife doesn't understand me. It may have started that. Now it's like, I'm really a jerk. I mean, I do a lot of things that are really problematic, and I need to find a way to minimize my ego and get inside of I need to right size myself. And as I started to do that, I started to find more energy, more compassion, more patience, and the ability to see clearly the path we needed to take to get out. And so we worked, I think, very well collaboratively to figure our way through this, to get to today, which I'm in a restaurant on a Thursday afternoon in Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm looking at the front door and there's a line of people. Yep. I'm looking out here on the green space of the patio here, and children are out there throwing the ball to each other, and we have a lot of happy people eating great food. That's a lot to be thankful for. It's a lot to be thankful for.
And thank you for sharing that, right? And thank you for sharing also. Where do you all see Jackson in 10 years? You did a program almost a decade and a half ago, right? And I think it's interesting. We're having this interview in 2022, and when you guys did the program, it was like Bill Jackson 2022. Well, here we are, right? So what do you see next?
How fortuitous that I took a bite of food.
That one's for you. I'm staying away from this.
How old are you?
31.
You need to run for office. Talented, engaged people that care need to run for office, and need to run for office because you want to make this city everything it can be. I think a lot of politicians that we have that exact narrative. I think more people need to join the fray, and I think that the citizens of this city need to take the narrative into their own hands. We are a very poor city. We are falling apart. That is the truth. We're in a state that is shrinking in size, and the brain drain is real. I'm thankful that a 31-year-old like you stayed. A lot when we look for talent, particularly leadership talent, it is hard for us to find management material because so many folks that are management material, there's so many jobs available in so many different businesses. It's easy to take something that is an easier, softer path than running the restaurant business, because we have a smaller population to pull from. We've got to build our population, and I'm hoping that in 10 years we've figured out the struggle between our city and the state, and we have found a way for the state in a healthy way to be able to fund this very poor city and what it needs to be able to move us forward, and that the city and the city leadership in return can understand that there is a price to having someone else pay the tab. You know, when you're on a date, the girl may have to kiss the guy, or the guy may have to kiss the girl if the girl pays on Venmo, right? There may be a price for that date. The city needs to realize that if the state's going to do something, there's probably a price to pay for that. And that may be changing the makeup of some of the commissions. Instead of having a water system that's owned by the city, it may have to be regional. It may have to be state-driven. Instead of having a,
do you think that could work though?
It works in many other communities, but I think our state has a long history of divide by race and power. It used to be that the state hated Jackson because that's where all the rich white people were, and we're the poor white folks in the country, and we're doing the work, and the rich folks in Jackson. Then when Jackson became a black city, it's very easy for the state's narrative to be, we don't care for Jackson because it's run by African Americans.
Do you think that's fair?
No, it's not fair, but it's up to us to own our own narrative.
Honest.
And the narrative that shows up in the press and some of the fights we get into are not the best looking fights.
Honest, earnest. I like it.
Honest, earnest. I don't have an agenda, and Dan has rolled his eyes as I've tried to help with mayor campaigns. I've done a lot of stupid things. I've done a lot of wrong things. I've never done anything based on my personal agenda. All I've tried to do is I know what it's like to do business here. I know the pain of having 21 days when you're not open. Oh, and that's not the first time. We've had a week, 8 days, 5 days, 3 days, 24 hours. The famous thing is when the text goes off and says water pressure going down at Broad Street. And then we know the 911. We immediately go to the back storeroom, pull out all the bottled water and canned drinks, and call the vendor and say, bring the truck. Call the ice vendor, bring the ice. It's like a military precision thing, which is sad because we've done it so many times.
Yeah.
That's reality. That's what we deal with. And so when you say, I want, economic development, it's great to live in Jackson, make things happen. Well, we need to be able to provide that quality of service to be able to attract that business.
And I saw somewhere where they called some beat writer, I think he was out of Clinton. He called the Fondren area, and he also called the district area unfertilized ground or something like that, right? Saying this area, these two areas have enormous potential to really start that process, right? And when I come here and I look at you guys being here and all the buildings coming up, do you think that's a fair statement, Dan?
I do. I think we are. There's always going to be parts of the city that are growing, while there's parts that are not growing. And one of the things that we've done, we moved to Fondren because we knew it was an up and coming neighborhood. And when we moved there, we felt really good about it. Towards the end, not so much. And so we needed to find the new unfertilized ground. And I think we found it here.
Our problem in Fondren is the street we chose to be on ended up kind of isolated from the rest of Fondren. All of Fondren grew around the school. The school project, Dueling Hall, happened a year after we did Sound. It's like, well, damn, there's that. Yeah. So we were a pioneer, and pioneers sometimes get shot full of arrows, right? But here's the reality of Jackson. The Loft Apartments over here, the Meridian, and now the Quarter over on Lakeland. Those three apartment complexes are all open within, the last 5-6 years? Yeah. The Quarter just last year, waiting lists on all of them. And when I watch people come out of the lofts, they look like Jackson. It's all sorts of people. Yep. One of my dearest friends who's 80 years old just is moving in this weekend. She's a single grandma, 80 years old. She's moving over there. I won't out her on this because everyone knows who she is. She's a great public servant. But the point is that there's unlimited demand for quality housing, but there is a dearth of affordable housing throughout the rest of the city. So we have a poor city. A lot of our citizens are below the poverty line. We need to be able to find ways that they are able to live in peace and quiet and be able to find a way to be able to find work. And for a lot of those folks, transportation is a big challenge. Childcare is a big challenge. And these are the issues that are economic issues. that unfortunately, again, in most growing cities, business people wouldn't talk about this. It's all being handled by somebody. We're a small city, and if you care about your city and you employ folks, I employ a lot of those folks I'm talking about. And we are one of the few structured environments where they know every 2 weeks there's a check. They know that fair rules are here. You do this, you get that. You do that, you're going to get this. And that structure helps people grow, because in the outside world, it can be contagion. It can be crazy. And we're just trying to, we're trying to be the good guys that are saying, we see you for who you are. We want you to succeed. But this is a job.
Yeah.
So we have rules. You can't go smoke a joint on the back and come in. You can't do that. I don't want to hear about medical marijuana. You can't do that. You gotta follow some rules. But if you follow those rules, there's benefits to that.
What does legacy then mean to both of you? And you can choose to answer that professionally or personally, but what does legacy mean?
To me, it just means doing a job for a long time and being recognized for it as being exceptional in what you do over time. That's kind of what it means to me.
We've had thousands of people work for us over the last 28 and a half years. Thousands. I know that we have had positive impacts in many of their lives. I can go home on that. Dan has a joke. I didn't have squat for money when I moved here. And when we finally got to a point where we started making some money and we got a decent sized paycheck, Dan would joke, Jeff's never had money. He has no idea what to do with it. Or if I want to buy something, we need to buy something in the restaurant, he'd say, we can't afford that. I said, well, we need it. He goes, you don't understand money. I've never been in this for the money. I've been in this because I wanted to do something. I wanted to learn something. He taught me an awful lot.
What has that dynamic been like? Two friends working together for almost 3 decades. I'm sure a lot of ups, I'm sure a lot of arguments probably, but...
Oh, you're a fair share of those. Because he's running the front of the house, I'm running the back of the house. And there's going to be tiffs. It's going to happen.
What was something you two just, at one point, we could not get on the same page on?
I have pulled us in a lot of flights of fancy trying to make things better. So, we tried to open a produce company to be able to support local and disenfranchised farmers. And financially, that was a big kick in the gut. That's something that is something that hurts a lot between us. I think that we'll work through it, but we came off mission. What we do well is this. If we stay in this swim lane.
But if you remember, we had our issues. We've had some issues with the way we operate our restaurants. We just moved past them. Made some decisions that weren't right, and we backtracked on those decisions, and we are here today because we changed what we were doing a little bit, morphed what we were doing, and we're able to get out of some bad situations.
We had 2 small broad streets we opened downtown trying to generate more revenue to support our bakery. When our bakery was off-site, we had to close those down, move the bakery around. We've had a lot of stressors. A lot of time chasing mistakes. In business, there's a concept called the dumb tax. You pay a dumb tax. You make a mistake, and you pay a tax. You pay a fee for it for the rest of your life. Missed opportunity. If you spend a decade trying to fix a mistake you made, that's a decade of missed opportunity. So one of the things that I've come to realize about myself is I will jump before looking. And I'll jump based on faith. And sometimes you just need to, like the carpenters say, measure twice, cut once.
I like that.
So, I'm thankful that a lot of partnerships were disintegrated by this time. I'm thankful that we found a path to stay together, and each of us are able to get what we need out of this business and our relationship, and we can keep on providing the means for income and support that these young people have.
A house of customers. Well, as I start to wrap us up, I just have a question I like to ask. What is the ugly truth about the restaurant business? There's so many restaurants that open yearly or even daily that just don't seem to make it a year, let alone 3 decades, right? So I think you two are really qualified to answer that question.
Well, I think we found the answer in this restaurant. Our motto from the movie is "Do the right thing." That's what we learned from the movie "Do the Right Thing," is to do the right thing. So we try to use that as our teaching point. That if we do the right thing for the customer, that we will thrive and be successful. And so we always come back to that bullet point of do the right thing. And sometimes that thing is to do the right thing and then do it over the top. If someone doesn't enjoy their meal, you don't just buy their meal, you give them a gift certificate to come back and enjoy another one that will hopefully be better. So you take care of your customers and you treat them right, you give them the best food, you give them the best service, and doing the right thing will take care of you in the long run.
We're selling this product. If someone did not enjoy it, we don't have the right to charge them for it. All we've done there is we've just taken away the sting of the money. They still had a lousy experience. How do I make that up? Come back again, and I think we can get it right. We've been doing this for a long time. I believe your experience was an anomaly. I have faith that if you return, it'll be better. So I need to give you something to come back. That is insane business. Oh my God, people will steal from you. They will scam you. They'll complain online. God bless the 1 or 2 people that have tried to get one over on us. I look at it as an investment, not a cost. Now, specifically, advice for folks why restaurants close. I would love to be able to drive a car like Dan, or a motorcycle like he used to drive, or fly a plane. I have no aptitude or ability to do anything like that. I am an automatic guy with a cup holder and a cup of coffee and Bluetooth. A lot of people can make great crawfish, or make a great ham and cheese sandwich, or they really enjoy bourbon and they can make an old fashioned that's better than ever, and all their neighbors love it. And so I should open a restaurant, or I should open a bar. I should get into the business because I make this great thing. During setup for this, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a repair guy. He and I pulled aside 3 different times because he's working on a piece of refrigeration back here. And I got behind it and looked at it and said, okay, this is what we're taught, this is what we need to do. And he didn't have a correct tool, and he said, so I need you to get a torque wrench and go in here and do this. And I'm like, got one in my car, I'll take care of that. That's the reality of our business. We know more about heating and air conditioning and about, I watched him break down stoves and put in Venturi tubes. It's clogged toilets. The reality of this, staff members that are, that fail us, and then we have customers that need need attention. It's not adjusting the lights and the music and woo, I love what we do. So folks, I think, get into this business not really understanding that it's much more than just making a great ham and cheese and an old fashioned. And we're successful because we complement each other, and one's weakness is the other's strength. If not but for him, we would not be here. If not but for me, we would not be here. If either of us tried to do this alone, maybe you would have figured it out. There ain't no way I could have done it. So it's the power of the two of us together that made this happen.
Well, it shows. And the last thing I want to touch on is just because I think it's a true testament to you all's leadership and running a business. When you were talking about the meeting we had before we started, you said something that I just made a mental note of, and I said, I want to say this on camera, right? When you introduced the entire Dirty Napkins crew to the entire staff working today, the fact that it was all women, right? From the manager all the way down, all the way to the bartender, not down, all the way to the bartender, I think deserves a lot of kudos, right? For what you all are doing and what you all are standing for as business owners. So I just wanted to give you your flowers.
I appreciate that. And as a male who I have a wife, I have children. I know the rigors of having children. I've had a wife that worked as well, but in our family, a lot of those responsibilities of taking care of the children, things they needed and getting them where they needed fell on her shoulders. I'm amazed at the power and the ability of so many of these young ladies to be able to manage their private lives as well as their professional lives. And so we try to create an environment where flexibility and the ability to be able to get off when you need to get off it makes it a success. So, that's how we're able to attract people, I think. Thank you.
Well, guys, I really appreciate the time. Before I let you go, we got a gift for each of you. It's just something we do here at Dirty Napkins. I got one shirt for you. I think and a shirt for you also. Dan,
thank you
yes,
so
sir. It's just a token of our appreciation for you taking time out of your day and Dan not doing any donuts on the way in, just coming to sit with us.
Good.
We really appreciate the time, and other than that,
well, we've got something for you.
Oh, okay. So here we go.
When the wings come out and you're eating them, you end up you get all this. And so we have the paper napkins.
Okay.
So when you eat at Sal Mookies, one of the things you see is you'll see a table full of dirty napkins.
A table full of. I gotta partake. All right. Well, since I got sauce on my hand, I won't worry about her shaking you, but it's been a pleasure.
Give you one of those. Thank you, Jeremy. This has been lovely. Right on, man.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Jeff Good and Dan Blumenthal here at their restaurant, Sal Mookies. Special thanks to our sponsors. Your contributions allow us to spread awareness to local communities around the world. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Dirty Napkins. Until next time, it's your host, Jay Taylor.